my experience in the UK was that I was told what I was going to have done, and this is what it's going to be. Don't ask questions. I know best. That's how it is. I think with my message to doctors is just, remember that the person sitting in front of you doesn't know what you know, and they're probably scared, and they need a comforting arm around them to help them through that process. But also, just because you know what you know doesn't mean to say you can't be open to other alternative options. And in fact, one of the specialists that my wife and I went to was very evasive about any questions, and actually brought up about RFA and wanted to know if that was an option. He refused to continue the consultation. My issue with the whole system with speaking to specialists and the National Health in the UK was that RFA at no stage was ever given as an option. And that's a concern for me, because clearly for many of us, RFA is the route to go, and it is successful and it does work.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the RFA MD and Dr. Thyroid podcast. I am Philip James, and today I am seated with Peter Miller from Ireland. Peter, it's the second time we have met. Welcome.
Hi, Philip. Nice to see you again.
It's great to see you again. It's been just over a year. I'm going to give everyone a quick recap on your case. And you are in Ireland. We're going to get into the details, but you had a large goiter. You visited with more than 2 or 3 doctors in the UK who all recommended surgery. You then took matters into your own hands, did some research in Ablation, which you have been treated with. You've had very good results. You have avoided surgery. We're going to take a deeper dive into your story, into your journey as a patient, and to how you are doing today. I think it can help a lot of patients around the world. So thank you, Peter. Thank you for being available. Thank you for being here today.
Pleased to be here.
And how are you? How's everything in Ireland?
Yeah, great. Obviously, been a lot going on in the last few years for me. But thanks to the route that I decided to take, and sort of ignoring the original advice and directions that the specialists I had in the UK, I'm feeling great and well on the way now.
Before we take everyone down the path of your journey in regard to goiter and thyroid ablation and avoiding surgery, on a personal note, you and your wife rescue, or you are a foster home for aging dogs.
Yeah, we have a boarding facility in just outside Atlanta in Georgia in the United States. But the prime reason for that is to fund our passion, which is to rescue senior hospice dogs. So we have a hospice that is 8 years old now, rescued several hundred dogs that would have been on death row, and they live on some really nice woodland areas and cabins, and being sport rotten with homemade food and everything else. So that's lovely. We have 32 dogs there at the moment.
Peter, you've done this a while. This kind of a random question, but maybe some others are wondering. When you rescue a dog, like you said, from death row, people just gave up on them and said, all right, let's send them off, let them die. Yeah. When you rescue and then you say, like, you pamper them, do you feel that there's a change in the dog within a week or two where there's a shift that they say, wait, we have different surroundings now?
For sure. A quality of life and a reason for living. Most of our dogs are able to go out in the community and work, visit adult day centres and visit schools. Gives them a purpose for living, so they're not looking at a wall and just giving up on life. And often, most of the dogs we get are sort of given weeks or a few months to live, just to live out their last days, been given up for whatever reason, either abandoned or just given up. And often they'll live for another 2, 3, 4 years. So it's the miracle of that life, and they they're cared for by an amazing group of volunteers we have. But they live in like a home environment. They're not in kennels. They sleep on leather couches. They've got homemade food every day for them. Yes, they have a pretty cool life. It's very rewarding. We get far more out of it than they get, So
I'm going to ask you to share the links to your organization that you work with and include it in this episode, because I find it fascinating, and I'm a dog lover, and I'm sure anyone who else is a dog lover listening to this episode or watching it also has an interest.
Thank you.
Now to shift over to your health.
Yeah.
Can you give us the 60-second version, and then we'll go back and get the details about your discovery of goiter, being told you need surgery. You probably need more than 60 seconds for this. Let's do the 180-second version. And then the symptoms you were feeling and kind of what happened.
Yeah. Well, I knew absolutely zero about goiters or anything to do with the thyroid anyway. In June 2022, I was getting increasing difficulty with breathing. I had sleep apnea. My wife was really concerned about that. Bad snoring as well. And then I started getting some bouts of dizziness that were really worrying to me. So I eventually went to a doctor. He referred me to some specialists, and I ended up, we were living in Northern Ireland at the time. So I visited 3 private specialists and also the National Health specialist there, my doctor. So we had sort of like 5 different advices, and all of them were immediately urgent surgery to remove this goiter, which was 13.5 centimetres on the left lobe, and on the right lobe was 11.7 centimetres. So, fairly large. And that period of time, that was from June to December of that year, I was going back and forwards to different specialists and finding out more about this. And then I just didn't feel right. One question I kept asking was, what is a definitive working of a thyroid? What does the thyroid do completely? And no one could give me 100% definition. All the specialists said, well, there's things that we don't know yet. We're yet to learn about thyroid. And it kind of occurred to me, well, that didn't really make sense, that I would remove it if I didn't actually know what it did. I'm obviously got no medical background or whatever. It was just the logic of it. It just didn't feel right. So I guess, like we all do, we get online and start trying to find something, reaching out for some more information. And then I came across the 10 things your thyroid surgeon isn't telling you, an article that you wrote for RFA MD. And it immediately sort of clicked that there was something out there that I could, explore. And then I reached out to RFA MD and did more research, found out more articles that you posted. And then I was connected up with Dr. Valcavi for RFA in Italy. And from there, everything sort of shifted. So I made the decision not to go the route of having my thyroid removed, and then went the RFA route. Obviously, what I wanted was, I wanted, when I first spoke to Dr. Valcavi, I said to him, look, this is what I would like. I would like to have, if possible, my goiter reduced by 35 to 40%. I'd like to keep my thyroid, and I'd like to maintain quality of life without taking meds for the rest of my life. That was the remit that I gave him. And I got a scan done and sent the blood work over and everything, and he looked at it and came back, and I went over, and that was the following year. And that was in 2023, in February 2023. So I've gone from January to December in 22, from the sort of like the mainstream view. And then very quickly from January to February, I was in Italy and having my first RFA. And then my second one was May last year. And now, obviously, here today, no sleep apnea, no dizzy spells, my breathing's fine. all my vitals and my blood work now, which I've just done again a couple of weeks ago. Everything's really good. My TSH is very slightly low, but it's vastly improved. So everything's going the right way. My T3, my T4s are all normal. So, I don't think I'll have to have hopefully any more procedures. That's where I am now.
Any other physical or mental outcomes post ablation that you feel improvement?
Yeah, I just quality of life is everything, isn't it? And I'm enjoying life again. I can exercise properly. I've lost a lot of weight. I've got more to lose, but I've lost nearly 2 stone in weight since we first spoke.
How much?
Just coming up to 2 stone in weight.
So 2 stone, how many kilograms?
No idea. I was 295 pounds, and I'm about 265, I think it is now. So
great,
got a bit, yeah.
Great.
More to lose, but the dizzy spells and the sleep apnea and the major things, and obviously the breathing, tightness, and everything, all completely gone. So, yeah.
Well, what a great question you were asking of your doctors, saying, what does the thyroid do? What's fascinating, though, is you said that none of them really gave you a direct answer.
No, and my issue on this is, RFA is not for everyone. I don't think that, you see all these things on the internet these days about lose weight, do this, do that, and everything. Everyone's different. Just from my view, everyone's different. And some things work for some people and don't work for other people. It doesn't mean to say they're bad. It just means that it's not the right fit. My issue with the whole system with speaking to specialists and the National Health in the UK was that RFA at no stage was ever given as an option. And that's a concern for me, because clearly for many of us, RFA is the route to go. And it is successful and it does work, but it should be given as an option. And I'm quite happy if a specialist says to me, "Look, my opinion is you should go this way, but there is other options and it's RFA." That's then my choice. But not to be given that option is wrong. I think a lot of people are missing out on a lot safer route as well.
I'm going to backpedal a bit. And there were some things that you mentioned that to me really stood out, and I want to draw attention to them. First off, did you say the size of your goiter, there were 2 nodules, one 11 and one 13 centimeters?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
So, when you hear that, that's actually very large.
Yes.
And then of the specialists that you visited in the UK, you said there were at least 5 that were telling you, let's go do a surgery now.
Yes. Yeah, that's correct.
We're giving you another option.
Yeah.
Another thing, you said when you took matters into your own hands and did some research, you came across one of my articles that is 10 things that your thyroid surgeon is not telling you.
Yeah, that's the first time that I'd read, obviously about your journey, and just sort of starting to question what I was being told. Not to think that I knew all the answers, but just to start questioning. And in fact, one of the specialists that my wife and I went to was very evasive about any questions. And actually brought up about RFA and wanted to know if that was an option. He refused to continue the consultation. And that to me is bizarre. Why would someone close their mind to something like that and not even be open to it? And if they didn't know about it, why wouldn't they go away and just professionally check that out and see if it was an option?
Kudos to you for questioning that, because too often patients will go see a doctor, just one doctor, and take everything at face value and not question.
Philip, all my life I've been like that. I've never questioned up until this point. But obviously, it's scary, and when someone says, because of the size of the goiter, there's a potential bleeding out and there's a 50-50 chance of, you could die. because Dr. Valcavi said it's the largest goiter that he'd ever, worked on in his career, and he's obviously, as you know, has done a substantial amount of work in this field. So it was a very stressful time.
What was the moment where, after listening to a number of doctors, what was the moment that you said, I'm going to go home and get on my computer and start doing some research?
I think that when we had the consult and the specialist was, as I say, was very evasive, it just didn't feel right. And as I say, that question, that very simple question, kept sticking in my mind about, what is the definitive role of a thyroid, 100%. And not, and it became sort of like a thing that every time I spoke to my specialist, I kept asking the question, prompting. Because it just didn't make sense to me. So that was the reason it led me to the internet. And I know that can be dangerous at times, but I was just curious to know if there's another option, if there was another way of getting around it.
Do you remember what you searched when landing on the article, 10 things your thyroid surgeon is not telling you?
Yeah, it was, well, that would have been it was the first, I can say exactly, it was the first week of January 2023. And it was the article that I read it about 3 times, immediately as I scrolled through, I read it. And
what did you type in?
I just think it must have been, the original searches must have been alternatives to surgery for a thyroid, for a thyroid or goiter. It was very, very vague because I didn't know really a lot, from a technical point of view. I didn't even know what to put in there. So I was just lucky that I found it. It was sheer luck. And then once I was on that, then that led me to RFA MD, and then all the, the links and other information, and then searches became more defined. And then I was kind of like, you can tell by the fact that was the first week in January, and I was in Italy with Valcavi in February. So a lot happened in a short space of time. So I was kind of like obsessed with searching there in January, and I'd made my decision by the end of January that I was going to go out to Italy. The reason I went to Italy, of course, because it's not available in the UK.
Oh yeah, we're going to get into that.
Yeah.
But for those wondering, what the heck am I doing writing this article, 10 things your thyroid surgeon is not telling you? Just for those new to the podcast, to this YouTube channel, it's because I had a bad thyroidectomy that should have never happened. And I wish I would have asked that magical question you asked, which is to point at the surgeon who should have never done my surgery and said, what does the thyroid actually do? I think that's the best question I've heard, Peter, for a patient to ask, because it changes the whole conversation with a doctor who's saying, just take it out, take a pill every day, everything's normal. But when you spin it and say, by the way, tell me exactly what the thyroid does, it changes the whole conversation. And you get to the last part of it, which is, and then there's some things that we might not know.
Yeah.
Which then the conversation is very different than, no problem, we just cut you open, we take it out, you take a pill every day and go on with your life, which is a total lie. That things do change. And I can say that from my own personal experience, not only physically, but mentally. And we now know all the bad things that occur in the you don't have a thyroid. So good for you, Peter. Good for you that you did your research. So what happens? You said in UK or in Ireland, ablation is not even offered.
No. There was one option at the time in London. There was a specialist from doing them, but by the time I reached out to him, he'd stopped doing them, and he'd gone into another field. And there was nothing available. There was one NHS place in Reading that were offering it, and I know I connected with someone else who was researching at the time, and they went that route. But again, it stopped being funded. So, to the best of my knowledge, certainly last year there was no RFA available in the UK.
Let's pause on this for a moment. because it becomes so relevant for patients in the UK that even if a doctor starts offering ablation because it's so new in the UK or not offered at all, that doctor's not going to have the experience of a doctor who's located in a country like Italy, or even in the US now, or in Brazil, or in Korea, where they've been doing this a lot longer. Not the US, but there's some doctors in the US that now have over 1,000 cases behind them. But again, even in the US, there's a lot of doctors that don't have the experience. That's definitely going to be the case in the UK. And it's so important to end up in the office of a ablation provider who in fact has a lot of experience behind him or her.
Yeah. And has that confidence behind him to answer the questions that you ask.
I want to interrupt you one more time. You just said the confidence. You're right. And you were with Dr. Roberto Valcavi in Italy. He has the confidence and experience to know that he can treat a large goiter, and he can do it with confidence because of his experience. What I want to really emphasize, some thyroid ablation doctors, in fact, are treating thyroid cancer with 100% success in larger nodules, even over 2 centimeters, and the cancer is disappearing. That represents, at least in the US, only maybe 1% of all doctors can do that, and do it successfully. So you said the word confidence, and I just want to emphasize for patients watching or listening, it's not all doctors who offer ablation are equal. It's so important to have the right expertise.
Yeah. I think that, on top of that, with Dr. Valcavi is that level of empathy, because my experience in the UK was that I was told what I was going to have done, and this is what it's going to be. Don't ask questions. I know best. That's how it is. And and going to Dr. Valcavi, he understood that I was scared. He's got this process that he will not go to the next stage when he's talking to you until you fully understand what he said. And he doesn't mind if he goes back 3, 4, 5 times. He will make sure that you're comfortable, that every stage is explaining, you completely understand what's going on.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you're using words in the way that you're describing some things that I think it requires interrupting you for a minute. You said the word empathy. And you're right that's special with doctors like Dr. Valcavi. My experience, and I've interviewed over 200 thyroid doctors around the world, that the best ones in the world, they do have empathy and they have humility. They're humble. What I've found in my experience, some of the worst doctors and surgeons out there are the ones that cut you off, or they're arrogant, or they have this aloofness, or they're hurried, or they, like you said, your doctor would make sure you felt comfortable with what he was explaining before moving on to the next topic. So important. And I think patients need to hear that if they're currently being treated by a doctor who's short, who cuts them off, doesn't explain everything thoroughly, doesn't have empathy, that there's other doctors out there that do. And to switch, get rid of that old doctor. Not old in terms of age, but your old doctor, and get a new one.
And Philip, how busy Dr. Valcavi is, and he's traveling all over the world and doing, all these conferences and giving advice to other surgeons and whatever. But he's so accessible with email, and he'll respond immediately. Any questions? So it's always that thing when you've had a session and then afterwards you think, oh, I wish I'd asked that. And it's
you're right. The responsive, even through email, which for Americans, they're not used to hearing this, that you can actually email a doctor. In fact, you can. And I know with a lot of doctors that I've interviewed even with their patients, mostly in Latin America, this situation where they allow the patient to WhatsApp message, and they're super responsive. But it's interesting to hear what you're saying, that you could even follow up with Dr. Valcavi through email, and then he would respond back. It's refreshing to hear this. And I think for even patients who are in countries where that's not the norm, if it's your health and it's a matter of saving your thyroid, it's okay to travel a little bit and invest a little bit of money, because you're going to end up being rewarded with a higher quality of life if you don't lose your thyroid.
Yeah, I agree.
So good for you, Peter, that you really became your own advocate and found a good specialist.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, the me finding Dr. Valcavi was through RFAMD, because when you go online and connect on the website, you put in your where you live, and then it comes up with the different options, the closest options to you. And obviously, as we've already spoken about, the UK was out for me, so there were different options. But Valcavi, I then went on and researched him and looked at the work he was doing and a lot of the stuff there, and just got a good feeling about him. His website's really good. It shows, you can see videos of what's his work, and again you can see his style and his demeanor, and it's very relaxing, and that was important to me. So that link up with RFMD, because it's in every walk of life there's good and bad, and you're going into a field that you're playing with your life, and you're trusting your life with someone, and you want to make the right choice. So you need to be, steered the right way. So, I mean, getting that help at the start with RFAMD was invaluable. Because, I could have gone, I don't know where I would have ended up if I hadn't had that.
Well, that's good news. My mission is to help patients avoid unnecessary thyroid surgery. After going through a situation where I received a thyroidectomy, it shouldn't have happened. And it's great to hear that the resource of RFAMD worked for you. But you brought up another point. Maybe this is the part of the interview that doctors should really pay attention. And that is, once you get on to RFAMD, and I think whether we're doing it subconsciously, in your case, you're probably doing it actually aware of it, where you're saying, is this matching? Is it checking out? Is it reputable? Yeah. But then further, when you finally find a doctor that you're going to select, that you're looking for certain things, even, and I know Dr. Valcavi does invest in education and creating resources for patients and doctors. He actually invests considerably in doing so. And it's not about self-promotion, but tell us your experience from a patient's point of view. What role, kind of what you're looking at when you're looking at websites, and what role all that information played in your decision?
Yeah, I think unfortunately with the net, there's a lot of overhype, and a lot of the sites that are offering too much without any real substance. And it might sound a little flaky, but I think you have to trust your gut. And sometimes you just have to go with it and trust that you're on the right route. And there was some information that was a little bit too dramatic on some searches and that, and I sort of dismissed a lot of those. But yeah, it's just, I mean, the RFAMD has obviously got such a network. I mean, I think it's grown substantially since, even when I've contacted you back then. But the amount of professional people around the world that are linked into it gives you that comfort as well, that it's not just a one-off operation somewhere on the other side of the world that you don't know what's going on. So that gives you a comfort of authority. There's some sort of credibility there, and accountability. So yeah, I was definitely happy to get in at that point with RFMD and then go from there. So sort of take the lead from there and get links, as I said, with Dr. Valcavi, and then outside of the box, research him independently and get a comfort for the overall picture. So not to take someone's word and that's it, but to take it with comfort, and then and that encourages you to go and explore more, more and more. If that makes sense.
And I think what you're saying too is the importance today that a doctor has a presence. You said you had a certain level of comfort with Dr. Valcavi before even contacting him.
Oh yeah, sure. Sorry. Yeah. I mean, I've never experienced that from the UK. I've never been able to go on a website and have a look at a doctor, work and see obviously text, but also see video and get a sense of who he is and how he operates and that gives you an immense comfort when you first make contact with them.
That's interesting. I just had a procedure, colonoscopy. I'm at that age. So the doctor, because he had so many informative YouTube videos that were showing not that he was qualified, but his demeanor. He seemed very compassionate, authentic, real. And I thought, wow. And he was even doing some webinars, and it really influenced my decision.
Yeah, that's the key. I think there's a lot. YouTube again is another example. There's a lot of good stuff on there, and there's a lot of stuff that's just about selling a product, selling a service, or whatever. And you've got to see how genuine the person is. And I mean, when you start seeing the research and the papers that he's been involved in now the books come out, and obviously I enjoyed your book, of course, as well, Philip. But that it gives you the substance there. It's not just just a sales pitch on a 2-minute video.
Man, Peter, listen, this has been a great interview with you. I think the information you are sharing it's so valuable for other patients to hear. Looking back, what do you feel like every patient should know? What would you tell them?
No. Well, I think the key thing is to be confident enough to ask the questions that give you comfort, to explore all the options, not to be led without questioning a so-called specialist, because we're all human and we're all fallible. But do your research, but research in the right ways and get a feel for someone who's accountable. As I say, we talked about empathy, but you're doing it for the right reasons. I mean, the community, more and more that goes on the internet and is available. I mean, I've been able to refer 3 people to Dr. Valcavi now through a forum in the UK. And I know that I got an email only a couple of weeks ago thanking me for a successful procedure that Dr. Valcavi had done for them. And it's our experiences. It's important for us to pass on our experiences to give other people a confidence to go through this alternative route. And as I say, RFA is not for everybody, but it certainly can help a lot of people that are having their thyroids removed that they really don't need to.
Peter, great. What message would you tell every doctor now, but based on your experience, including the not so good experience of talking to 5 or 6 doctors in the UK that were leading you down a path that would have required surgery? I mean, just maybe that's what the message is for you to tell doctors. Maybe it's something else, but what would you tell all doctors?
Yeah, I think with my message to doctors is just, remember that the person sitting in front of you doesn't know what you know. And they're probably scared, and they need a comforting arm around them to help them through that process. But also, just because you know what you know doesn't mean to say you can't be open to other alternative options and not to shut those out, because it's your duty morally and professionally, ethically, to offer those options to your patients.
Well said, Peter. There'll be a link to RFAMD in the description here for people who are looking for a doctor. Any closing thoughts before we say farewell?
That's good. I'm just forever thankful for RFAMD and your article that started all this, Philip. and Dr. Valcavi, obviously. So I'm very, very thankful that I'm here today. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Peter.